Imagine this, converting this barren landscape into this vast aquatic expanse. For over a century, Australia has contemplated spending $200 billion to create its own Mediterranean Sea in the middle of the desert, a project that would change the climate of an entire continent. Here's the paradox. While the world fights to conserve water, Australia's engineers want to create an ocean where none has existed for 100 million years. But here's what's remarkable. Such a sea actually existed here once. The ancient Eromanga Sea covered this exact region millions of years ago. These modern visionaries aren't creating something new. They're trying to restore what nature once built. But classified documents reveal this failed project has been secretly revived with cutting-edge technology, and climate scientists now believe it might be Australia's only hope against catastrophic drought. In 1844, a British explorer named Charles Sturt set out to solve one of geography's greatest mysteries. Maps of Australia showed a massive blank space in the center of the continent, and European scientists were convinced it contained either a vast inland sea or a river system rivaling the Amazon. Sturt was so certain he'd find navigable waters that he carried a boat across 1,500 kilometers of desert. What he found instead nearly killed him. Temperatures soared to 53 degrees Celsius in the shade. His thermometers exploded. His men went blind from the glare of endless salt flats. Sturt wrote in his journal, "The country appeared as if it had been blasted by a curse." Yet even as he retreated, broken and defeated, Sturt couldn't shake the conviction that water belonged in this wasteland. He wasn't wrong, just 100 million years too late. Paleontologists have since discovered that the Eromanga Sea once covered this exact region, teeming with marine reptiles the size of school buses. The limestone beneath Sturt's feet was made from countless ancient sea creatures. In a sense, he was walking on the bottom of a vanished ocean, dreaming of its return. Fast forward to 1938. John Bradfield, the engineering genius behind Sydney's Harbour Bridge, was staring at the same maps that had obsessed Sturt nearly a century earlier. But where Sturt saw defeat, Bradfield saw opportunity. Where others saw empty desert, he envisioned Australia's salvation. Bradfield's proposal was breathtaking in its audacity. Capture the monsoon floods that devastated Queensland's coast every year and redirect them 2,000 kilometers inland to fill the continent's lowest point, a depression called Lake Eyre that sits below sea level. The engineering would dwarf the Panama Canal. The cost would exceed Australia's entire national budget. The result would transform the climate of an entire continent. Politicians called it visionary, scientists called it madness, Bradfield called it inevitable. Australia will either master its water, he declared, or its water will master Australia. He spent the rest of his life drawing blueprints for a project that would make the pyramids look like sand castles. But Bradfield had overlooked something crucial. The desert fights back. The numbers that doom Bradfield's dream are as unforgiving as the landscape itself. Lake Eyre Basin covers 1.2 million square kilometers, 1/6 of Australia. To fill it permanently would require moving 300 billion tons of water, equivalent to draining Lake Superior. Every year, the desert's heat would evaporate enough water to supply New York City for a decade. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with the drain open and a hairdryer pointed at the water. Yet nature occasionally provides a tantalizing glimpse of what could be. Every few decades, rare floods transform Lake Eyre into a temporary inland sea. Satellite images show a blue jewel appearing in the red heart of Australia, visible from space. Millions of birds arrive as if summoned by ancient memory. Fish somehow appear in waters that were dust months earlier. Then, inevitably, the desert reclaims its prize. These brief transformations drive engineers to distraction. If nature can do it temporarily, why can't human ingenuity make it permanent? Enter the 21st century, and suddenly the impossible seems merely improbable. Solar technology has advanced to the point where Australia could theoretically power massive desalination plants using nothing but sunshine. New proposals suggest pumping seawater from the coast directly into the basin, creating a saltwater sea that would resist evaporation better than fresh water. The vision has evolved beyond Bradfield's wildest dreams. Architects now propose floating cities powered entirely by renewable energy. Algae farms could produce biofuel. Salt extraction could fund the entire operation. The sea could generate its own weather patterns, bringing rain to regions that haven't seen reliable precipitation in living memory. But the price tag has evolved too. $200 billion and counting. That's more than Australia spends on defense, education, and healthcare combined. It's a bet the country proposition that would either secure Australia's future or bankrupt its present. Yet the biggest obstacle isn't engineering or economics, it's ethics. The Eromanga people have called this land home for over 60,000 years. Their creation stories speak of the rainbow serpent carving the landscape, creating sacred sites that would disappear beneath any artificial sea. To them, the desert isn't empty. It's alive with meaning that outsiders can't see. Elder Marianne Gale puts it simply, you can't improve on 60,000 years of knowledge with 200 years of engineering. The proposed sea would flood songlines, invisible paths across the land that encode everything from navigation to law to spirituality. It would be like flooding the Vatican, Mecca, and Jerusalem simultaneously. This cultural collision reveals the project's deepest paradox. The very people who know this land best are the ones most opposed to transforming it. But climate change has rewritten the rules of the game. Australia's droughts are becoming longer, hotter, and more devastating. The 2019 bushfires burned an area larger than England. Entire towns are running out of water. The Murray-Darling River system, Australia's agricultural lifeline, is dying. Suddenly, a $200 billion gamble doesn't seem quite so crazy. If Australia faces a choice between transformation and extinction, which would you choose? Climate models suggest an inland sea could increase rainfall across southeastern Australia by 15%. It could moderate temperatures across the continent. It could provide a buffer against the droughts that are becoming Australia's new normal. The question is whether the cure would be worse than the disease. Imagine Australia in 2075 if the project succeeds. The inland sea stretches to the horizon, its shores lined with gleaming cities that exist nowhere else on Earth. Desalination plants hum with solar energy. Algae farms stretch like green carpets across the water. The climate has stabilized, droughts are manageable. Australia has become the world's first climate-engineered continent. Now imagine if it fails. The sea becomes a hypersaline dead zone, poisoning groundwater for hundreds of kilometers. The soil becomes too salty for agriculture. The cultural landscape of the world's oldest continuous civilization disappears forever. Australia has spent its future on a mirage. Both futures are possible. Both are terrifying. Today, the inland sea exists only in computer models and the dreams of desperate engineers. But as Australia's climate crisis deepens, those dreams are gaining new urgency. Water security experts speak in hushed tones about transformational adaptation, changes so radical they would remake the continent itself. The technology exists. The money could be found. The political will might emerge from desperation. The only question is whether humanity has the wisdom to know when to reshape nature and when to let nature reshape us. Australia's inland sea represents more than engineering ambition. It's a mirror reflecting our species' greatest strength and greatest weakness. We dream of controlling forces beyond our comprehension, even when those dreams might destroy what we're trying to save. In the end, the desert that could become an ocean forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the most audacious solutions to impossible problems are themselves impossible. But in a world where the impossible is becoming routine, perhaps that's exactly the kind of thinking we need. The question isn't whether Australia will build its inland sea. The question is whether we're brave enough to live with the consequences of either choice.